Hey guys, I am back. Um, so, in order to get restarted on everything, I'm going to talk about what's going on for the last few months, so you guys have some sort of understanding of why I kind of disappeared. So, as you guys know, end of April we sold our house. We moved to Utah in May. So during lockdowns, we moved cross country, which was stressful. We didn't get back as much as we were supposed to from selling our house. I don't know why things didn't work out the number of ways they told us, but it just didn't. So after we moved, we paid all of our fees. We needed to get into our apartment and got the stuff that we had to replace that we got from when we got locked out of our house. Um, we didn't have a whole lot left, and of course, my husband was working up in Idaho to start off with, so I was by myself. So I wasn't doing 100% great, but I was trying to. So he was gone all during the week, and then he was literally coming home with a paycheck of like $200, and that wasn't going to even pay our rent. And so we were hitting our savings hard for groceries, rent, our bills, all of that. And it was hard. And so I was struggling. I couldn't find a job because I really can't work outside of the house because of my risk of getting that thing that's going around the world. And on top of that, my daughter was pregnant and 3/4 of a country away. And then other stuff happened. Now, keep in mind, for those of you who are new and don't know me that well, I do have CPTSD, which is complicated PTSD from multiple events. And I've been doing really good for the past few years. I haven't needed medication or anything. I don't need counseling because I've talked out everything that has happened to me to where I know things aren't my fault. I do still struggle with not taking on responsibility for other people's issues, but that's just something I may never outgrow. That being said, and I bring that part up because of what I'm about to talk about. So, towards the end of May, my daughter wanted to go see my grandmother because it was going to be her birthday. And my daughter, being pregnant and being in the last trimester, was regularly getting COVID tests. So that if she did go into labor, her and her fiance had already had one. They weren't leaving their house. If they received a package, they were spraying everything down with Lysol before it came in the house. They were hand sanitizing. They weren't going into stores. They were doing grocery pickup, and they were Lysoling stuff before they brought it in the house with that too. They were being super careful on top of already having tests done regularly. In case they had to go in the hospital, they had a recent test, is kind of how it was working. Well, so they knew they didn't have anything communicable. So they were given permission to go over with restrictions. So my grandparents have like a back porch, and then like there's steps, and there's like a flat area. I can't remember if it's still rock or if they put down. I think they might have done I think my grandfather like put down cement and stuff, made it look like bricks. But I don't remember. Anyhow, so my daughter's fiance had brought down the first chair so they could sit down bottom. My grandfather was not home yet. My grandmother said, no, this deck is like 10 foot. If as long as we sit across each other, we'll be fine. And the porch is, like two people could easily lay head to toe across that porch. It's easily 10 to 12 foot wide. It's not a tiny little back porch. So my grandmother sat on one side, my daughter and her fiance sat on the other, and they were just talking. They weren't touching each other. They were outside. And so they were visiting, and my grandfather came home and he sat in the chair they had put down bottom. So everybody was spaced out. I guess my uncle had showed up for a little while and he was standing right next to my grandfather. Keep in mind, my uncle works outside of the house. His wife works outside of the house. They have actual contact with the public. My daughter and her fiance did not. The only place they went to is his parents' house, and his parents were also quarantined because her husband has has conditions where he could get really very, ill from that stuff that's going around. So they were distanced outside visiting. About a month later, as I'm, worried about my daughter because she's getting ready to give birth and realizing I can't go to meet my grandchild. I still haven't been to meet my grandchild, which is also an issue. Um, because of restrictions with travel and the fact that I live in Utah, and for some reason they think we have like horrible cases and we really don't. Um, my father decides to call, and when I answer the phone, I just get screamed at. He literally just, instead of saying, "Hey, how are you? Can we talk about something?" Instead of being a grown up adult, he just started screaming at me. And when I said, number one, I don't know why you're yelling at me. I wasn't there. He's like, well, it was your idea. She should be able to go see them. And I'm like, listen. And I tried to explain to him how everybody was outside. They were spread out. They weren't right on top of each other. And I was being told that wasn't, that they were too close to my grandmother and that we were trying to his parents. That is what triggered my PTSD to a point where I could not function. I could not pull out of my depression. I could not have a life. Children want their parents to love them. And parents should love their children unconditionally. That is not my experience. When I was growing up, my grandparents expected me to follow certain things. And I wasn't always a joiner, you know? Um, I had a lot of stress growing up because my dad wasn't around. I think I saw him twice, 3 times growing up. And I've always wanted him to be my dad. My dad has always seemed to place his acceptance of me as to whether or not I lined up with what he believed. I don't know if he's capable of showing unconditional love. And I don't know if it matters at this point. My number one thing was answering my phone to someone screaming at me over something I wasn't involved in. He may as well have been my ex-husband, beat the crap out of me, and people wonder why I married someone who beat the crap out of me. Guess why? According to my dad's ex-wife, he hit her. So apparently I learned it somehow. That it's acceptable for men to treat women like they're pieces of crap. Like they don't matter. Yeah, that's where I learned it. There was a time when I thought my dad had changed and that my dad wanted a relationship with me and wanted to be my dad. I don't think that anymore. I think that my dad wants to be my dad when I'm believing what he believes and when I'm doing what he thinks I should do. And you know what? I'm not. I'm not going to be who he wants me to be. I'm going to be who I am, and that's going to be okay. And if it's not good enough for him, oh well. Yeah, is there a little girl inside who desperately wants my dad to love me? Yes, there is. There always will be. The same little girl that desperately wants my mom to love me. But they don't. They may think they do. They may think, oh, that's my daughter. I do love them. But they don't act like it. They don't show it. And I am not going to try to get them to love someone they don't love. I'm not going to beg them to love me anymore. I have people that love me. I have my husband, my daughter, my son, my grandbabies. My grandbaby, she smiles when I talk to her and she talks to me. I may not have met her in person, but I've seen her almost every day of her life. And I would die for her. I'm going to tell you right now, neither one of my parents would take a bullet for me. But I would take a billion bullets for my children over and over again. So yeah, that's what started all this. Hey, look, I got to fly too. Anyhow, um, yeah, I'll do a part 2. I gotta do this in small snippets. Sorry, guys.